Hi, my name is Jennifer Saltzman, and I am the head coach at takeyoursupplements.com. I wanted to share with you a testimonial that I received from a client of mine, one of the many success stories that I have, but this one just was very close to my heart because she's young and has struggled so much to regain her health and has had just such a phenomenal overcoming testimonial that I really wanted to share it today. She writes, "My name is Angela. I am 25 years old. I have been on a health journey that consists of an autoimmune disease, fibromyalgia, and other issues that left me feeling defeated and debilitated every day for 15 years. I have seen 8 different specialists, and many doctors have been in and out of physical therapy dealing with symptoms I thought would leave me wheelchair bound and in diapers by the time I was 30. Well, I am now 25, and after everything I've learned through Jennifer at takeyoursupplements.com, that definitely won't happen. Some things doctors have said to me have crushed my hopes. I was told to lose weight and that my pain would go away. So I lost 90 pounds, and the pain was still there. My days were short, and after a 5-hour work shift or even a day of running an errand or two, I was left debilitated. So the doctors told me the pain was all in my head because I was previously diagnosed with fibromyalgia, the only diagnosis so many doctors agreed upon because they couldn't think of anything else despite me having some form of an immune disease. I felt hopeless and as if life was going to pass me by. There were times when I tried hiking 1 or 2 miles and I was unable to walk or function for days after. I was missing out on trips and adventures, and as embarrassing as it sounds, I was having BM bathroom emergencies so frequently, it was ruining my daily function. I could go on about the ways I was ill and what it kept me from, but honestly, after the progress I've made, a long list of symptoms I used to have become a blur of the past. When I finally decided to check out takeyoursupplements.com, recommended through the Learn True Health podcast, I was immediately connected with Jennifer, who kept track of my overwhelmingly long list of complex symptoms and thoroughly created a personalized step-by-step plan. Her recommendations have changed my life, and the changes were practically instant. She put me on a complete digestive activation complex that has taken away all of my stomach pain, unnecessary bloating and gas, and she explained to me that the formula supports every stage of digestion from breakdown to absorption, designed to optimize stomach acid, bile flow, and nutrient assimilation. She recommended a cellular repair-focused diet, which not only has helped my stomach, but the food gives me energy and makes me feel really good. It reduces inflammation in my body, something no doctor ever told me about. When I first started with Jennifer, I took the takeyoursupplements.com health evaluation and I scored a negative 32. I just retook it and scored a 69. That's 100 points better in 5 months. Still room for progress, but my life nevertheless has been changed and I am so happy. My days have been much longer and full of adventure. I have hiked the 4,000-footer mountains of New Hampshire, something I never thought I would be able to do. I have had successful days of workouts, errands, and work. The Learn True Health podcast and Jennifer at takeyoursupplements.com have done more for me than any doctor ever has. And it all started with validation. I am now 25 and feel my life is just now starting. It's really hard to put into words just how much has changed for me. So I'll keep on living as actively as possible and learning as much as I can so I can finally take part in the beautiful things of life. I can't wait for the adventures to come with the hope I've been given through this program. If anyone out there hears this and feels their doctors are taking more than they're giving, give this a try. Thank you, Ashley and Jennifer. Your knowledge and expertise is a gift I cherish every day."
I love it. It's so amazing to hear all the testimonials that come from the people who go to takeyoursupplements.com. My life was transformed. My life was transformed from takeyoursupplements.com, from the same protocols that are used through takeyoursupplements.com. And I'm just so grateful that we can spread this information and help those people who are praying for answers. And shame on the medical industry to hold back this information. It is so sad, but when you look and you dive into why is it that medical doctors who are well-intentioned are not even taught how to help people heal their bodies. Medical doctors are not taught. That's not in their education. They pay close to $500,000 in education, and they're not even taught how to help you heal your body and reverse and heal chronic illness. TakeYourSupplements.com and the amazing holistic health coaches that work there are trained by outstanding experts, these naturopathic doctors and research scientists who have developed these protocols that support your body to heal itself. And that's what I love. It's a totally different concept. It's not drug-based medicine. We're not treating symptoms. We're supporting the body's God-given ability to heal itself. So thank you, Jen, for coming and sharing that testimonial. It is one of thousands of testimonials and stories that we get from people whose lives have been transformed. And thank you for sharing that inspiration, because I know when I was sick and suffering, hearing the stories, the success stories of people's lives transformed through holistic health is what kept me going and drove me to keep seeking these answers. So go to takeyoursupplements.com. It's free to have a consultation, and they can work with any budget. They're amazing there. It truly is their mission.
One of the things that really sets our program apart is that we take the time to understand the different categories of nutritional deficiency in an individual, design a program specific to that, follow up with them, and help them fine-tune it as necessary. So nobody feels like they're out there figuring it out for themselves. They're coached through the process of onboarding, adjusting, and then eventually, hopefully, moving to more of a maintenance program for extended well-being. And we watch their health score over the 90-day time elevate greatly. Like this young gal I just read, her score went up 100 points. We did it at the 5-month mark in this case. But I always do the health evaluation after 3 months, and I always see people's score elevate. So wherever somebody is, they're going to get supported help that is specific to their situation with a program that is so foundational and so thorough that we don't miss things that other doctors miss.
You brought up this term nutrient deficiency, and a lot of us do not realize that the root cause of our cellular dysfunction is nutrient deficiency. And I've covered this in several interviews. And in fact, when you work with Jen, when you go to takeyoursupplements.com and work with Jen, she gives you resources. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole and learn more, you can learn why we have nutrient deficiency in a world where we're eating too much. Like we have access to so much food. You wouldn't think you'd have nutrient deficiency, and yet that has been the root cause all along. And so when you work with Jen, she helps you to maximize your cellular nutrition. So now your cells can function healthfully, and these symptoms melt away. Illness melts away. I was able to reverse type 2 diabetes, chronic adrenal fatigue. I was able to reverse polycystic ovarian syndrome and infertility. And my adrenal fatigue, it melted away within days. And I'd suffered for years. And that is due to the fact that I was nutrient deficient. In a world where we have access to so much food, it's quantity, not quality. We're not getting the nutrients we need. So I can't speak highly enough about takeyoursupplements.com and how transformative it is to work with them. Go check them out. It is so worth it. Thank you, Jen, for the work you do. It's phenomenal.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to disseminate that which has been given to me and helped me so much with others who are, needlessly suffering and have, need to really understand back to the way God and nature intended for our bodies to function. We need certain basic nutrients, and they're just simply missing from our food. And so I just am so grateful that I have this tool to help people with.
Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 542. I am so excited for today's guest. We have Bharon Hoag on the show today, the executive director of One Chiropractic, the most disruptive advocacy organization in chiropractic today. There's so many people. I'm surprised at the amount of people I bump into who've never been to a chiropractor and are afraid of chiropractors because it looks like it's painful, right? Crack. It looks like it's painful. I have such a love for chiropractic care because of how many times chiropractors have saved me and completely changed the quality of my life. I was 3 years old when I started to see chiropractors. My very first chiropractor at age 3, and I remember him from age 3 to about age 7 or 8, was Dr. Mark Grossman, and he's still practicing in it's just north of Toronto. I'm sure Toronto keeps growing, so I'm sure it's considered Toronto today, but Toronto, Canada. Dr. Mark Grossman, and he was my first chiropractor. And then I saw Anita Shack was my next chiropractor. They left a lasting impression on my life.
That's awesome.
And it was Anita that made me want to be, I wanted to become a chiropractor. And then I saw a naturopath, Dr. Diadamo, when I was about 6 years old, who was the one that originally came out with the blood type diet. And he made me want to become a naturopath. And so those two professions like pulled on my heart for so many years. And I love that I do what I do now, because I'm a lot like you. I advocate for the space. I'm in the space and I help people. I'm not a chiropractor. I'm not a naturopath, but oh man, I love chiropractic care. And so whenever I bump into someone who doesn't see, like, usually it's because they're like, there's a creak in their neck, or they're just like, you can tell they're in pain. I'm like, hey, I have a really great chiropractor that I could recommend. And now I see a chiropractor she's in Linwood, Washington. I got to shout out. It's Blue Heron Chiropractic. She is absolutely amazing. Dr. Claire Russell completely put me back together. I had a car accident and also birth trauma. My pelvis was completely twisted. It was really crazy from my last pregnancy. And she uses an activator, which is tiny little click, 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 very, very precise. She never does the crack, crack or anything, and it doesn't hurt. And she put me back together. And of course, when I look at the activator, I'm like, yeah, right. What can you do with that little tiny, click, click device? It doesn't hurt. And I stand up off that table and I'm like, I feel 2 inches taller and all the tension in my body's melted away. And I walk out of there just elated, feeling so good. She's helped me so much. And this is what I try to explain to people that are afraid of chiropractic is that this isn't just a bone and joint doctor like we think, oh, crack. The chiropractic is responsible for protecting and helping your nervous system, because your nervous system comes through your spine, and they know how to help your nervous system, how to help your musculoskeletal system, how to help your organs. They know how to help the whole thing come back into alignment. So an amazing chiropractor is worth their weight in gold.
Amen. Preach.
I know I'm preaching to the choir, but there's going to be listeners who may have never gone to a chiropractor, or maybe they went to one that maybe it wasn't a great experience. And the thing is, there's many different styles of chiropractic, and I would encourage people to go find a chiropractor who's been practicing for a while and find one that does really specific work, like they do muscle testing, and then they do very specific work, not just like, okay, we're just going to crack everything we can crack. And go find a chiropractor that resonates with you, because they can be the most amazing part of your team that helps
Completely
you.
Agree.
Yeah. And they can also help point you in the right direction in terms of nutrition. They get more nutritional training than medical doctors. Now, I'm basically doing the interview that you should be doing. I'm sorry. I'm
loving it.
I just want to tell you like how much I love what you do. So you advocate for chiropractic care, but why does the chiropractic profession even need an advocate such as yourself?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, I loved that. That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing your perspective and your love and experience. Because a lot of times I'm talking to people that have none. And so they're very, it takes us a while to get deep. So I appreciate being with someone that has a personal understanding of this. It really goes back. First of all, it's important to understand I am a massive lover of history. I always want to know why certain things have become what they are before I try to affect any change in that particular situation. So in the world of chiropractic, it's very, very interesting. A lot of people don't understand. One, we're a fairly young profession. We're 129 years old. This September will be 130 years since the very first adjustment was administered by D.D. Palmer in Davenport, Iowa. But the profession came out of a unique situation. D.D. Palmer was a magnetic healer at the time in 1895, and he adjusted a janitor in his building because the janitor had fallen. He could hear just fine before the fall. After the fall, he couldn't hear. And so Dee Dee was just like, well, that's weird. Like the fall had nothing to do with his ears. Why all of a sudden did he lose his hearing? And so he just started what we now call palpating, but just feeling around on his neck, and he kind of felt a bump. And so he put some pressure on the bump, and the bump kind of snapped back into place, and all of a sudden the hearing came back. And what's funny about that story is immediately he put out an advertisement, because back then there were no regulations, there were no rules. You could kind of do whatever you could afford to do. So he put out a full-page ad in the local paper saying that he found the cure to deafness. Well, he never restored another person's hearing at all. But all of a sudden they would say, I still can't hear, but now this is better. And then he would put out a full page ad saying that he found the cure to whatever that particular ailment was. And so the journey of chiropractic came as an individual was discovering that by finding these bumps in a primitive manner, obviously it's far more scientific and specific today, but in that time they didn't have technology, they didn't have the ability to know what we know today. So he would find these bumps and he would just put pressure on them. And as he did, all of a sudden the body started responding in unique ways, and symptoms started resolving. People started having more energy. People started having better vision, better, all of a sudden their gastrointestinal issues were getting better. And so he really developed it from obviously that point to what it is today. But the uniqueness of this profession and why they need advocates is because we have been in direct and utter contrast to the development of allopathic medicine. So our primary premise is that your body is self-healing, self-regulating. It does not need help from the outside to be what God created it to be. But the common everyday marketplace of healthcare says the exact opposite. You can't live unless you're taking some type of pharmaceutical. Just watch TV in the United States and you can see 70% of the advertisements are some form of pharmaceutical product. Our allopathic system is amazing for emergency care. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world if I was in a serious accident than in the United States, because we do it better than anyone else. We can save more lives in that capacity. But we are the absolute worst at delivering health. And that's because of the economics of our healthcare system in the United States. There's so much money in sick people. The goal is not to get people healthy. The goal is to somehow keep them sucking on the virtual teat of healthcare forever and the longevity of these conditions, because they're going to have to take a pharmaceutical product forever. They're going to have to do these things. So that's been the economics, thanks to the Rockefellers and a number of groups, if you care to go down that rabbit hole, of how allopathic medicine really built and created its empire. The AMA became so strong in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. But chiropractic was attacked actually by the medical community because we were, again, in direct contrast to that. We were like, no, you don't need any of that. Let's figure out where the interference is. And this again, we believe we're self-healing, self-regulating organisms. What we have to do is remove the interferences. And Dee Dee came up with this concept. He said, your body has three major types of stress: thoughts, toxins, and traumas. The three T's: your physical, emotional, and chemical stress. And if we can figure out how to remove those interferences from your life, then your body actually is so strong, it's capable of healing itself. Fevers are a phenomenal thing. People are always trying to take medication when you have a fever, and we tell them, granted, if it gets to 104, go to the hospital. Like that's dangerous. You're going to start creating brain damage. But other than that, let the baby go. You don't need to take medicine. Let your body do what it was intended to do.
I would challenge your 104 there. Interestingly enough, before, no, but I get it. Like at a certain point when a fever is out of control, like maybe 106 or 108.
Okay, yeah, whatever the number might be.
Whatever the number is. But 104 is actually a very healthy, good fever, as long as you're not having seizures, as long as you're not, like unresponsive. Like if you can communicate, if you might feel lethargic a little, but if you can communicate and you're not feeling like your heart's not doing anything weird, you're feeling good, like wrap yourself in blankets, encourage that fever. 104 is where you want to be. You want to like bake those viruses, and it stimulates. Fevers stimulate your stem cell production, increasing stem cell production in children. I have a really interesting interview This is pre 2020. Okay. So think before 2020, we had a different perspective on fevers.
Absolutely.
And I had she's since changed her name. We're friends on Facebook now. She's coming back on my show soon. So I'm just, I'm not going to say what her name is, but if you go to my website and you type in anesthesiologist, she was an anesthesiologist who retired from anesthesiology to work with her son who was autistic and he was on the spectrum to the point where he couldn't be in a classroom. So whatever part of the spectrum that would be, you can imagine maybe not verbal or not able to, work with other children. And she nursed his health to the point where he was able to be in a school with children, working with kids, and now he's in his 20s and like driving and just, doing great in life.
That's amazing.
And so she came on the show to talk about some things, and one of them was fevers. And she said, we keep this concept. Think about this concept. Where does this concept come from? That we have to medicate a fever and turn the fever off to stop that feedback loop. Is allopathic and back in the 1918 and 1919, those who died the most during that pandemic were given allopathic medicine, and one of the things was aspirin, which was new to market. They didn't know how to dose it, and these people died. And aspirin, causes a lot of there's a lot of negative issues that happen with aspirin poisoning. But even taking aspirin at the recommended dose, it does a lot of damage to the body, including leaky brain and leaky gut. And I believe it also may disrupt glutathione production. I'm not 100% on that, but it does several things that are not great. And so a lot of people that died were actually dying due to aspirin poisoning from the hands of the allopathic doctors, whereas those who went to the homeopathic hospitals lived, and they did really well using homeopathy, which is frequency medicine, not molecular medicine. They thrived under the care of the homeopathic practitioners, maybe just even because they weren't being poisoned by toxins. Like they were just allowed to have their immune systems run its course, but then using homeopathy, which supports the body's ability to heal itself, much like chiropractic care supports the body's ability to heal itself. But back to the fevers, what she said was that she noticed that there was a developmental leap after every fever her children had.
Oh, yeah.
And she went, oh, that's interesting. So she started to, anytime her kids had a fever, she would put a hot pack on their tummy, wrap them in blankets. And as long as they weren't, again, seizing, not going limp, not like if they weren't slurring their words, they're, all these things that would, obviously concern you, as long as they were conscious, acting normal, other than maybe a little cranky because they're hot, she kept encouraging the fever, and then it would blow out whatever the body was working on. And then they'd have this developmental leap, like they'd go from crawling to walking or not talking to talking. And that was one of the things that she did with her son, that she noticed that the nervous system was actually benefited by fevers. She directed me to look up an article, and I live here just north of Seattle, Washington, and the hospital here, the Children's Hospital, is quite famous. It's a great for, if you need allopathic care for your child, it's the Seattle Children's Hospital is amazing. And they had an article pre-2020 that talked about how fevers up into 109 was safe for children. Up into 109.
Wow.
That at 108, you can still, as long as they had, okay, watch for the child, as long as the child can still eat and drink, like, sip on water, they're not seizing, they're not floppy. 108, totally healthy, totally fine, no problems. As long as they didn't like have those issues, right?
Yeah.
And then 2020 came along and they edited that article intensely. It was really, they put a bunch of caveats. It was really interesting. But that's just this concept of fever. And you bring up this one thing, right? Because we have to question our own belief system, this one thing of fever, to medicate it. Well, when you medicate a fever, you actually cause more damage than good,
100%.
but then have to invest more money into the mainstream medical system.
Yep. And it was designed that way. I mean, and again, I don't want to I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, but it's unbelievable to me how quickly people just follow the shepherd, right? And when
But
you
out of
stop
fear.
at 100%, well, it's
we're out of
fear,
fear, right?
and
It's fear based.
but we've also been trained to not question certain things. And so when we don't know, we trust those that are supposed to know. I mean, that's just a human thing. And then, but it isn't until you stop getting answers that make sense to you that you actually start digging and realizing, holy cow, almost all of this is not probably the best advice for me. And that's really what we face with chiropractic. When people go to a chiropractor and we're explaining to them how the body actually functions, and really with the work that we do, specifically neurologically, when people understand that the adjustment isn't about your back, it isn't about your bones, it's about your brain, then it's a massive shift, because people relatively get the idea, if I have a headache or sciatica pain or back pain, go to a chiropractor. That's been pretty well covered, and it's pretty mainstream. People get that. Whether they choose to do it or not is different, but they can understand that logic of, I have back pain, I have a headache, I'll go to a chiropractor. But when you really understand what the adjustment actually does, and you understand the neurology behind it, that's when it gets even crazier. And then knowing what it does and the impact that it has on neuroplasticity and the prefrontal cortex, then you start questioning a lot of stuff that you're like, well, wait a minute. If that force, if the receptors that are attached to the vertebra are not there for any other reason than to give information to the brain to process that information, and then to create a motor output, then things like posture is a neurological response. It is your brain's interpretation of what's going on with the body, and therefore it produces a motor output that creates what we would consider poor posture, but the brain thinks that's the safest place for it to be. And so you when you start understanding this is where all of a sudden it's really cool to do the hacking, like biohacking or things like that. It's not hacking, it's understanding how the body actually operates and starting to remove interferences and give it good information. And your body's just an unbelievable thing. Similar to what we just talked about with the fever. The reason that the fever created better responses to her child is because it reset the brain. The brain was no longer getting bad information. The fever in and of itself kind of shut everything down and put the brain on high alert. And the brain was like, oh crap, okay, hold on. We need to regulate here. You know, we've got some enemies in the body. We're going to turn up the temperature a little bit to kill those things. And then once it got to a place where they felt it was safe and the infection or the virus or whatever it was dealing with is gone, it does a self-analysis. It's almost like you're scanning for viruses on your computer. And when it does that, it's getting all new input, and it starts assessing different things, saying, oh, well, wait a minute, this area here probably could use a touch-up as well. And then it puts some energy and effort into that area. And those were the cognitive increases that they started seeing with their child, and the behavior patterns and things like that. So it all makes sense when you understand how the brain actually operates and how selfish the brain really is over any other system in the body. And then when you know that, then you can start working that. And that's where we want people to have healthcare freedom. We want you to understand your body. Like women, I'm always fascinated with women. First of all, I'm very, very glad I'm a man. You guys definitely got the raw end of the stick when it comes to just health and all the different parameters that you guys have to deal with. But women are so much more in touch with their body because of their menstrual cycle. You've learned how to read your body and know when things were coming, whether it's natural pregnancy care, right? When you wanted natural contraception, you were monitoring your temperature, you were looking at your ovulation cycles. When women understand their body to that degree from a menstrual side, you know what foods you should or shouldn't eat when you're coming close to your time. You've built your life around knowing the right way to handle that particular body process. The same thing can happen with your brain if you take the time to understand how your brain operates. Here's another perfectly great thing. And you probably already know this with your work, but it's just a simple little thing that listeners can do. If you are one of those people that you don't feel like you get super restful sleep, or you can't stay asleep, you find yourself waking up and then you just start going down the rabbit trail of your brain and thinking of everything, just take one spoonful of honey right before you go to bed. Just keeping your blood sugar up and feeding the brain while you're sleeping, it keeps it busy. And so if you do wake up to go to the bathroom or anything of that nature, you can fall back asleep much faster because the brain is still busy processing the nutrients from the honey. So again, it's just a tiny little hack, but it's something that when you understand how the brain operates, then you can start making decisions in your life and start doing things. And that's what made me fall in love with chiropractic 29 years ago. I knew nothing about it. But when I started understanding how the body actually worked, and then I started adding things into my life, knowing what I knew, I'm like, holy crud, this is unbelievable. And my son was adjusted at 2 hours old, because I understood the delivery process. I understood how important the central nervous system was. I understood neurologically the importance of a baby from birth up until the first 6 hours, and then another milestone of 6 hours to 2 months, how important it was to help my child really develop the right strength and the right neurological habits so that he would excel. And now my son's 24 years old, never had an antibiotic in his body. He's never been vaccinated with anything. He was a 2-sport athlete in college, never had a broken bone, never had a serious injury or illness. His body is just a freaking machine. But it's because from birth, we did everything that the body was designed to do. He was adjusted regularly. We did all of the neuroreflex things with the baby when he was growing. And he's ate right. He eats at the right times. He's just this product. And we joke about it in our profession. We call them Chiro kids, like, especially after COVID and all of that stuff. It's like, if there is an Armageddon, the Chiro kids are the ones that are going to freaking just excel. Make sure, that's one question. If you're stuck on an island with someone, ask them if they got chiropractic when they were a kid. And their bodies operate a bit differently because it's not overwhelmed with all of this other stuff. Now, granted, they're still human. They're going to drink water. They're going to eat. Our food is horrible as it is. So you can only do so much, but it's interesting to me. I just want people to understand. And I'm not anything special. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a degree in this stuff. I am just someone that fell in love with a profession, and I hated not understanding it. So I went and I just started putting myself through seminars. I started asking questions. I got care myself. I took jobs that put me in certain positions that allowed me to learn more. And now I'll be 50 in June, and my whole life is advocating for people to just understand themselves, understand their body, and make good, educated decisions for them and their family. That's my mission, because you're not giving the tools in their schools. You're not giving the tools with your average everyday pediatrician or with your average everyday MD. And that is not a knock on those individuals. It is not their fault. They're a product of their environment, just like we all are a product of our own. But it is time that this information gets out, which is why I love shows like yours that are willing to have these deeper conversations and challenge the status quo. I'm not here to blame anybody for why anything is the way that it is. It's human nature for people to try to benefit and profit off of knowledge. I'm not blaming anyone, but I just want to create a little bit more noise so people have options when they start relying and what they're going to listen to and how they're going to advocate for their life, because there is such a better way of life than what most people realize, because they just don't know where to look or what conversations to have.
Well, I hope our listeners are encouraged to go find a really good chiropractor. And there's so many different styles of chiropractic, and I didn't know that for years. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 2012, I want to say, is when I discovered that there was several styles of upper cervical chiropractic, Blair and Nuka and oh my goodness.
There's a million of them.
There's
I mean,
so
there
many.
really
There's so
are.
many.
Yeah.
I have a few more in my head somewhere, and each one is a bit different. I did a road trip, a business road trip with my husband back around 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, and we were in our truck, and this truck wasn't amazing. The suspension was like just basic truck suspension. And I did the thing you shouldn't do. I put my cell phone basically in my crotch, how you just kind of rest your hand on your leg. Yeah. And for 9 hours as my husband drove, and I like driving, but my husband was like, "Oh, you just chill. We'll get to Calgary." And we drove from Seattle to Calgary and occasionally I'd look up like, "Oh, there's a mountain." But pretty much I played some, I don't know, silly game on my cell phone back then for 9 hours, and my neck didn't hurt. That's the problem. The problem is with cell phone neck is like I wish it hurt because then people wouldn't do it, but it didn't
Right.
hurt. So then we slept on a not great mattress at our friend's house. And then the next night we were at a hotel because we drove up to a different part of Alberta, Canada. We were going to go to a health conference and we were helping with that, with the health conference. And I rolled over, and it was a nice bed at the hotel. I rolled over, and all of a sudden the entire hotel building started crumbling around me and going around and around and around. And I thought the hotel was falling. And I'm screaming because the hotel room is spinning and spinning and spinning. And I feel like I'm falling to my death. And of course, my husband has no idea what's going on. And then it keeps spinning and it keeps spinning and I keep falling. And I'm like, okay, I'm not dying. The room just keeps spinning. And I'm throwing up from the sheer force, the feeling as if my body is
Wow.
being thrown. It was very violent. I felt like I was on like someone had attached me to some kind of circus, machine or something. It was really scary. But after a few minutes and it kept going, I collected myself and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not dying, but my entire body feels like it's dying. And I kept moving. I moved my neck and then I got it to calm down. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. Now I'm in a town of 18,000 people in the middle of like cow country and farmland on a Saturday morning. And when I turn my neck in any direction, the entire building feels like it's falling like I'm falling with the building and it's spinning
Yeah.
around me. So I say, okay, I'm just going to rest. And I send my husband to go like help setting up and everything. And I'm like, my first thought is to find a chiropractor, but I'm like, for sure, there's not going to be a chiropractor in this town of 18,000 people in the middle of nowhere on a Saturday that's going to be able to see me. But I look it up and there are, get this, 3 upper cervical specialist chiropractors in that town. And one of them could take me immediately. And he felt my neck and he's like, oh yeah, your atlas is so out. Like it is so out. He put me back together. The room stopped. The vertigo stopped, but the vertigo was so intense. I had been throwing up all morning. Like that's how intense the vertigo was. So he put me back together. And then I came back, I think later that day for a second adjustment. And then I came back the next day for an adjustment. And then we finished out our trip and the vertigo was under control, but I would start to feel like it's happening. No, the room wouldn't spin anymore, but I would start to feel like it's happening. And then I'd have to kind of like get my neck in a right position. So when I got back to Seattle, I discovered a upper cervical chiropractor, and it took us about 3 years to fully correct what I had done in those 9 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's people walking around who go to their MD, get put on drugs, get told they have Meniere's disease.
And there's nothing that can be done for them. Yeah.
When when what they need it's a structural issue, not a it's a hardware issue, not a software issue, right? And the MD is like going to try to treat your software, right? Like kind of try to drug you. What you need is physical manipulation, but specific, because as my chiropractor told me that she learned in her chiropractic school, if it's not specific, it's not chiropractic. It's
Agreed,
not
100%.
If it's not, you can't just go like, we're just going to go crack, crack, the whole thing. You have to be very specific, find the exact facet and aid it to come back into alignment. But that experience, and I believed in chiropractic since I was 3 years old. Like I believe in it my whole life. But that experience was like the first time I had a major crisis, and chiropractic care was exactly what I needed, the exact tool I needed. And the thing is, let's say chiropractic care isn't the tool you need, it still helps you. It doesn't harm you. It still helps. Whereas if you go to an MD and you tell them, I have problems sleeping at night and I have this pain, they give you a bunch of drugs. They're harming you. They're not helping you. They're not getting to the root cause. They're masking it. Yeah, it's masking. It's a crutch. Yep. Sometimes crutches are great. Sometimes crutches are life-saving. 99% of the time, the drug isn't what's going to actually help you get better. We need to find the right tool. And that's what I love about chiropractic is go to a chiropractor, because even if it wasn't like, it probably is what you need, but even if it wasn't what you need, it's not going to hurt you in the process. It's actually just going to help you.
Well, and I don't think people understand the level of education that they have. I think people look at, we hear so many different opinions of chiropractors. I've done a lot of lobbying legislatively and national and in states. And, when I'm educating legislators or decision makers and they're like, well, we just kind of thought chiropractors were people that didn't make it into med school. And it just cracks me up because it's like, okay, fine, whatever. But do you understand what the schooling is? And when you look in a comparative between a medical doctor and a chiropractor, their schooling, chiropractors actually have more classroom hours than an MD does. Where it really varies is the clinical rotations. Because medicine has been around so much longer, it has developed specialties. Chiropractic hasn't been around long enough where from a public perception that there are specialties. There's just a chiropractor. There isn't a pediatrician. There isn't an optometrist. There isn't a cardiologist. There isn't a gynecologist in the chiropractic space, right? We're small and we haven't been around as much. But there are chiropractors that are specific, like you were talking about upper cervical. We have chiropractors that really only focus on pediatrics, and they do a lot of neurodevelopmental issues, and they're amazing at helping children with ADHD, autism, those types of conditions, and give them more cognitive control than what they had because they understand how the brain operates from an adolescent standpoint. And so when you look at the schooling, instead of us learning pharmacology and surgery, we're spending more time in diagnosing anatomy and physiology. So if it comes to anything to deal with why your body is responding the way that it is, I would, and yes, I'm biased, but if you're listening, I can prove this through just evidence. I would go to a chiropractor hands down before I'd go to an MD. An MD is going to look at your symptoms and they're going to send you for tests. You're going to get blood work. You're going to get maybe x-rays, MRIs. You're going to do all these things. Based on the results from that, they're going to try an array of some type of pharmaceutical product to see if it curbs the symptoms of what you're dealing with.
Cut, burn, poison.
Yeah, and if that doesn't work, then they're going to try a different myriad of pharmaceutical products. And if that doesn't work, then they're going to refer you to a specialist, right? And it's not their fault. It's their training. 90% of the training that MDs get are from protocols that were developed from pharmaceutical companies. It isn't from a sheer understanding of how the body works. Chiropractors, it's the kinesiology, right? And if you don't know that term kinesiology, it's how does each part of the body respond to the other? What is the kinetic chain? So here's another crazy thing. Your low back could be coming from your feet. Your low back could be coming from your neck. We have to look at the kinetic chain and see how is your body responding to the structural and the neurological inputs that it's getting. We do this all the time. So I do own a clinic currently in Columbus, Ohio. My daughter's a chiropractor. My son's in chiropractic school right now. But I have a clinic with 3 chiropractors in just outside of Columbus, Ohio. And, we're very neurologically focused. But what we can look at in x-ray, we have so many patients that will go have x-rays done from their primary care or from an urgent care or whatever. And then they're like, yeah, they looked at the films and said there's nothing there. I'm like, well, we're going to retake them because they're trained to look at them very differently than we are. So when we look at them, we can tell so much about the history of a patient by looking at their films. We can look at the disc spacing. We can look at the degeneration. We can look at the calcifying that's starting to happen between the vertebral bodies. We can look if there's been trauma, the remodeling at different parts of the spine. The curvature of the spine tells us a lot about if it's a straight neck, if it's a reverse curve, or if it has a good natural curve that creates the proper spacing for the nerve roots to leave the spine. People don't understand that your nervous system is the only system in your body that's protected. Everything else is just kind of smushed together, right? Your brain and your nervous system are the only things that are encased in bone to protect them because of how important and how sensitive they are to the overall function of the body. We've never had a successful brain transplant, and I don't think we ever will because of how intricate our brain is. And so when you, and to go back to your analogy or your example of what you were having with your vertigo and your neck, the reason the atlas being out of alignment is so vital is because your brainstem goes down to C2. So when your atlas is out of alignment, that means that it's putting pressure on the brainstem. When you put pressure on the brainstem, you're cutting off information from the body going to the brain, and the brain doesn't know what to do. This is why if you cut the head off of a snake, the tail will still whip around. It's because it lost its information, so the muscles don't know what to do other than to spasm. So when you cut off information flow from the brain to the rest of the body, your body's going to start reacting in weird, crazy ways, which is why in the allopathic world, there's very few protocols that work for everybody, because not everyone has the same exact reason why they're having the symptom they're having. And so we play this, Russian roulette with pharmacology to figure out which one's going to work, because we don't know, because we really don't know what is your specific reason for what's going on in your body. So hands down, chiropractors are they're educated. 4,400 hours of classroom. Then they have to take 5 national boards. Then they have to pass the licensure in the individual state. They're very, very educated people. And if you take the time to go and sit and listen to one, just in your overall foundation of health, those are the people that have total control, because they're getting more information. We work very, very well with the medical doctors in our community that have taken the time to understand our approach. We don't want to do what they do. There is a time and a place for medicine, hands down. If I have a super important meeting and I'm really struggling with something, I'll pop an aspirin. I'm not against it, but I'm not going to take aspirin every day for the rest of my life because it's the only way I can cope. Right? That's the difference. If I have high blood pressure or cholesterol issues, I'm not just going to trust statin drugs for the rest of my life. I'm going to look at what are other factors I can introduce into my life to control those two numbers in my health. So, there's so much that you can do when you understand exactly how your body is responding. And that's one of the reasons I fell in love with chiropractic. And there's a lot of reasons. So my daughter does another technique that's called BEST technique. And this is an energy work. And this might be getting out in the weeds for some people listening to this, but I didn't believe it until I saw it myself, and then I studied it.
Yep. Don't worry about being out in the weeds though. Just we got to go deep. We got to get weird.
Yeah.
This works. It works. So tell us about BEST, but understand that we're not judging you for going out there.
Okay, perfect. So we all know that when there's a visceral response to certain emotions and energies that we have. When we're scared, we feel that queasiness in our stomach. When we're super excited, we might perspirate or we get really antsy, right? So we know that there's a biological response to a neurological effect, right? I think everyone can agree to that. When you're super hot, your body naturally sweats. When you're really cold, your body will shiver. All these things are just a biological response to a neurological impact. Well, BEST technique goes as far as saying we believe that trauma, injuries, your organs, parts of your body can actually store some of that emotion and hold on to it, which will ultimately prevail in some kind of a symptomatic response. So even in chiropractic, we have people, if we adjust them, we can't seem to get the body to let go of whatever pattern that it's in. And so that's where techniques like BEST or NET or some of these other energy works are so amazing, because they actually start targeting the specific areas of your body that they've mapped it out so they know what organs store what type of emotions. I've watched my daughter take athletes that are just stuck. They're prone to injury. They can't figure out, they can't strengthen themselves, enough. They can't diet enough. They can't do anything. They just are prone to injuries. And then all of a sudden start doing this work on them and watch them resolve and clear those areas, and then they don't have another injury. It's the most fascinating stuff I've ever seen. Like I watch her with moms that have had a lot of post-traumatic issues, or they're holding trauma, whether it was sexual abuse or physical abuse in a relationship, and they have issues of unforgiveness and they can't let go. She'll do this technique in conjunction with the adjustment, and all of a sudden the health gains that are happening in these individuals are just unmeasurable. And that's what I love about chiropractic. It's constantly looking to say, okay, hold on, let's see how the body is designed to respond to that stimuli. Why isn't it responding appropriately? What are the interferences that could be there? Is it thoughts, toxins, or traumas? And then we're going to build a plan around those ideas to figure out what it is. And 99% of the time, they're able to do it if you give them the opportunity, the time, and the effort to dig in and figure out what's going on, which is why you have such the strong love that you have, because that's been your experience. It's not about just popping a bone and getting a cracking sound. That happens, but that's not what it's for. And the reason the activator, when you looked at it and you were like, there's just no way that thing's going to do anything, because it has nothing to do with it actually causing the bone to move. That thing clicks at a specific frequency that communicates with those receptors that sends information to the brain. And so it just causes the brain to start focusing on that particular area where it's getting clicked. And that's where the change comes from. Like it's incredible when you understand that. Low level lasers, right, those are a big thing in today's healthcare. People buy them off Amazon all the time. Infrared lasers or low level lasers. Those are all just frequencies. Mm-hmm. And when you put them to an area of the body, whether it's inflammation, whether it's scar tissue, whatever reason you're lasering yourself, the reason those things work is because it's putting a frequency in the body that causes the brain to respond to it and focus on that area and cause healing. I bet I was a part of when low-level lasers first came out in the early 2000s and they were getting FDA clearances. I was working, I had a friend that owned a company called Erconia Medical, and they were the first people to get FDA clearance for burns using lasers. And what it does is it actually communicates with the cell itself, the ATP of the cell. Mm-hmm. And when you put that frequency in there, that's where the extra healing comes from, because it's communicating to the cell's communicating to the brain. The brain's like, well, let's amp that bad boy up. We like this juice. And all of a sudden you start seeing these burns getting better faster with less pain than the normal allopathic model of treating a burn. It's all because we've learned how to communicate with the body at the level of which it communicates itself. Everything's energy. Everything's energy. That's why meditation works so well. That's an energy control mechanism. Doing Zumba, doing Tai Chi, doing yoga, all of those things have less to do with stretching and more to do with regulating how the body actually operates. And that's where the positive change comes from. So this is why I fell in love with chiropractic, and the deeper I dug, and there's a phenomenal book that I would recommend to anybody that is interested in this brain stuff. It's called The Reality Check by Dr. Heidi Hoag. She's and it's Haavik, Heidi Hoag. It is a phenomenal book. It's got the latest research. She's a chiropractor, but she's also a PhD in neurology. And she is one of the leading researchers in the world. She lives in New Zealand, and I've had the honor of becoming friends with her over the last 10 years. And the research that she's doing is so unbelievably groundbreaking. She's published in so many medical journals because of the work that she's doing, but she's mapping what actually causes stimulation to the brain. She was the first person that was able to show that the adjustment, the reason that it has the effects that it has is because it stimulates the prefrontal cortex, which creates neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's juice. It's creating new synapses, right, in the brain. I'm not sure, Ashley, exactly how old you are, but I know when I was growing up, I was told that, you only have so many brain cells, don't do dumb stuff because they're not going to grow back, right? Like it was like, you can't do that because you don't have enough brain cells. But that was the popular belief at the time, is that the brain did not regenerate. Well, now we know that's not true. That's changed in the last 20 years. But now we're finding out not only can it regenerate, but there are things you can do to cause it to regenerate.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of what she's done in her research. The book reads very, very, it's an easy book to read. It's not going to be super medical. It's not going to be super complicating, but she does a phenomenal job of using research. Everything in that book, you can Google and research yourself and understand how the brain really communicates, what types of decisions you should make in your health, and really let your brain be a teammate rather than an opponent. And I think so many people start working on health, and whether it's obesity, whether it's allergies, whether it's just chronic health issues, whatever your journey is, we oftentimes treat our brain as an opponent rather than a teammate. And when you start understanding how the brain works, and you start, and it's not deep stuff, you're not gonna have to buy millions of dollars of equipment. You're not gonna have to spend billions of dollars on healthcare. A lot of the stuff you can do yourself. But this is why I love chiropractic, and I think everyone should have a chiropractor as their baseline person in their medical team, to just make sure everything else you're doing is working better, because the brain is now a teammate rather than an opponent in that journey.
Oh, that is so cool. BEST stands for Bioenergetic Synchronization Technique, and it's been around for 45 years. And I love that chiropractic is always improving on itself.
Absolutely.
And it you know that the Hippocratic oath, which is do no harm, it is it's hypocritical. It's
You think?
hypocritical because
It's
I
definitely
mean,
subjective.
I believe that medical doctors want to do good. It's not that they don't want it's not that they want to cause harm, but I invite you, if you're on a medication, which 70% of adult Americans in the United States are on at least one form of medication. That's how sick we are as a nation.
Oh yeah.
There are certain medications, like, for example, you're type 1 diabetic and you're on insulin. I'm not counting that. That is necessary and life-saving. But 99% of medications that people are on are not life-saving. They've been just sold a bill of goods
Absolutely.
that is harming them. So when I work with clients, so I'm a holistic health coach, and I've been doing this since about 2011 now. And I was working with clients before that, but it wasn't under with the knowledge that I gained around 2011, which was I was mentored by naturopaths, and then I went through rigorous training. And I worked alongside them for several years, and I've been working with clients for many years. Even before that, back in 2005, I started working with clients doing a type of therapy. It's called timeline therapy, and it's a type of therapy that is like cognitive therapy and behavioral psychology, but it stems from neurolinguistic programming. And so we're working with the brain, like you talk about neuroplasticity. We work with the brain to help you quickly, it's on a quantum level, help you quickly resolve the unresolved inside your body that's stored inside your body. So even from your childhood, and get this, even from conception, even from your ancestors.
Yeah.
We
100%.
even from, I've had clients have distinct and clear memories of being in the womb and hearing arguments and details of arguments while we do this therapy. And then they go and they clarify with their parents, and their parents are like, how did you know that? And because we have stored in our neurology the memories, but we hold on to negative emotions and limiting decisions and these unresolved experiences, like and the native Hawaiians described it as like boulders in a stream that cause turbulence in the energetic system of the body. Or like they said, it's like you take this negative experience, you put it in a black bag, and then it's stored inside you, causing turbulence as the energy moves through. It doesn't allow the energy to move freely because we're holding on to these negative. When I say negative, I mean unresolved. So
Right. Yep.
because emotions, I mean, we think anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. Those are the emotions that I help people to resolve in it's between 15 minutes and 45 minutes per emotion. So it only takes a few sessions, and we've gone through your entire life, all conscious and unconscious, and we resolve anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. And so I've been doing that since 2005, and
That's so amazing.
it is really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
If you personally want to do it with me, I'd love to do it with you. I can do it over the phone. I've been doing that since, like I said, since 2005, and I started doing it, and I got trained in it by the creator of it, and then I later was hired to be his sales manager. That's why I moved to the States. And so this was like a big, like, God put this this is part of my story, right? Like it's huge. But doing timeline therapy with people, and a lot of other systems call themselves timeline therapy. So it's like, I've met a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, I've done that thing. It's where you pretend like you're a baby and you scream. I don't know. It's not that. So a lot of people haven't even heard of this technique, but it actually resolves major trauma in a really beautiful, gentle way, not a violent way. You don't have to relive things. It's not damaging to go through the process. It's very cathartic and healing and wonderful.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that for many years, working with clients. And it was only a natural progression that I would look to help people on a physical level, because I myself was struggling for many years with health issues, and the MDs had nothing for me. They just had drug after drug, and that made it worse. And then I found these naturopaths who were like, you need nutrition and you need to stop eating this and start eating that and take these minerals and, just make these adjustments that weren't, that were not in conflict with my body. Like taking drugs were in conflict with my body to try to force my body into submission, but that doesn't get to the root cause. So I very quickly overcame major issues, including stuff I was told by the MDs I was told I'd always have for the rest of my life. Very quickly resolved those. And that's why I started doing this podcast, because I'm like, we have to get this information out there, because I would cry myself to sleep from suffering. And I know there's people out there who last night cried themselves to sleep begging God for the answer. And this episode, for example, could be what guides them, could be what inspires them and what gives them the information they need.
100%.
I just want to back up. You mentioned cholesterol, and I know that you're not an expert in cholesterol. I know this isn't an episode in cholesterol, but I feel like I have to clarify that cholesterol is not unhealthy for you, that is also a lie that has been told to us.
100%.
That
100%.
our body makes cholesterol. I'm vegetarian. My husband is like, he calls himself vegan, but like he'll wear leather boots because the animal's already dead. Like when we went to buy our car, I was like, so are we not getting a car with a leather steering wheel? Like at what point are you not a vegan? Right.
So
he's not like he just doesn't want to consume murder, basically. But,
Sure.
But we also want to be pragmatic because we want to be healthy. We don't want to be like the vegetarians that like wither away and die. We want to be like the vegetarians that live to 100 and kind of like sadly laugh at all of our friends who, believed with their doctor.
Have all of these other issues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're all about getting the nutrients our body needs, and I'm pragmatic about food. I'm not going to be dogmatic. I'm not going to, this isn't the hill I'm going to die on. But I am looking to nutrify my body, and it's done wonders for me. So here's the thing. Your body makes cholesterol. We used to think the liver made cholesterol and that's it. So what they did is they came up with this drug that punishes the liver, that bruises the liver, that harms the liver intentionally. So the liver does its job less optimally and produces less cholesterol. We have now discovered that cholesterol is produced in every single cell of your body that has a nucleus. So 37 trillion cells?
Yeah, exactly.
Make cholesterol. Your body needs cholesterol. It needs cholesterol so much that 70% of the weight of the white matter of your brain is made of cholesterol. The myelin sheath, which is the protective sheath on most nerves, is made of cholesterol. Every single cell wall in your body is made of cholesterol. Your sex hormones and stress hormones are made of cholesterol. Like, it goes on and on and on. Bile is made of cholesterol, and bile is needed to emulsify fats. You don't have to eat cholesterol to make it. That's another misnomer. You can eat cholesterol. You can, and you cannot eat cholesterol, and your body will make it. So to punish your body and to take a cholesterol medication to lower, quote unquote, lower your bad cholesterol, and then go out and eat someone else's cholesterol is asinine.
Right.
But they don't tell you that.
Yeah.
So I have a family member. I'm not going to mention who they are out of, just protection to my other family members. But back in 2011, we begged them to no longer be on statins, which are the drugs that punish your liver to produce less cholesterol. And we begged them and showed them the information. But of course, their doctor, their MD, is the God in their life. Yep. And they said, no, my doctor. And by the way, this person has multiple degrees, like highly intelligent person.
Yeah.
Who are we? We're people without degrees. Who are we?
That's
some kind of whack job,
We're
relatives.
Conspiracy theorists. Yeah. We're anti-vaxxers.
Right. Whatever.
Yeah.
Just label us.
Yeah. Right.
And so they said, well, my doctor's smarter than you. And they got peripheral neuropathy from taking the cholesterol meds, which means they couldn't feel their hands and feet and they started to fall down everywhere. And they developed neurodegenerative diseases, and then they developed Alzheimer's, and just went downhill from there. And that is the effect, not the side effect. That's the side effect. Using the term side effect, by the way, is a PR marketing term to make it sound less harmful. It is the direct effect of taking statins for many years that those who take statins will have a shorter lifespan and are damaging, they're starving their brain of nutrition.
And the
Now,
saddest part of that whole thing, and I don't mean to interrupt you, is
No,
they
go ahead.
know that that's the result. Like they know it, but to them, it leads to other drugs. And this is why you now have drugs that are designed to combat the side effects of opioids. Like here, take this drug if you have opioid induced constipation, right? And it's literally, if you could see underneath, there's a great documentary that came out about the Purdue family with opioids. And when you actually see the conversations they have and they're like, ooh, well, this does this. Well, yeah, we'll buy our way out of having to admit that. But by the way, this is just, we're going to start developing another drug because we know if people take this drug long enough, they're going to develop this symptom, and we need a drug it's literally it's a snowfall, it's an avalanche
So to
of
back
just
up,
different things.
to back up what you're saying, I have a family member who created he worked at JPL. He worked on one of the Apollo missions. He
Oh, wow.
he developed a machine that is called I'm going to say it wrong, mass photospectrometer. I know I'm saying it wrong. I'm just, it's one of those words where like I get halfway through it and I'm like, then I start questioning
You
myself.
run out of
like syllables. Mass photospectrometer. My husband can say it. I can't. So anyway, it's a machine that you can take this wand and you plug it into an unknown substance and it will detect all the molecules in that substance and then tell you, this is before AI, and then tell you what it is. So let's say I have a powder of baking soda, a pile of baking soda, a pile of sugar, and a pile of Tylenol powder, right? I could plug it into each one and it'll say that's Tylenol and that's sugar and that's baking soda. Like it knows. So he went around to he had lawyers. He went around to every single pharmaceutical company and tried to sell them this technology because they could prevent accidents from happening. Because they could detect, like, oh, what's this stuff? Oh, okay, it's the right stuff at the right. It actually would also tell them the right percentage, like it's 17% Tylenol or whatever, right? It could tell you exactly what it is, so you don't accidentally give someone the wrong thing. And every single pharmaceutical company came back and said, we would rather, and it wasn't super expensive for them to purchase it either. It wasn't like he was charging billions. They said, we would rather wait to kill enough people and just pay off the families because that's cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he ended up finding finally finding an application for it in the pulp mill industry because they cut down a bunch of trees, they make a bunch of pulp out of it, and then they pour unknown amounts of bleach, which then go into the rivers. Unknown amounts of bleach in order to bleach that pulp, but they don't know how much bleach they need to put in. They just keep putting it in. So he showed them that this machine, that could be programmed to then say, okay, this pulp needs this percentage of bleach exactly. So then they saved money, but they're also helping the environment, not pour a bunch of chemicals in the environment. So that's the industry that ended up purchasing his machine because they could save money. The pharmaceutical companies would rather kill people pay off the families. Like we have to they're not out for our best interest. It's
No,
wild.
they never have been. And here's another thing while we're on this topic. I mean, I have a visceral response when I start talking about this kind of stuff because it's just maddening to me how I love a capitalistic environment. I would prefer it over a dictatorship any day, but it really does drive me nuts when they create the rules around their own success. And I won't even get into the vaccine issue and how they've legislated their own freedom in that. But this is a personal experience that I had myself. So I've been an advocate for chiropractic for almost 30 years. I've did a lot of work at one time dealing with large insurance companies, helping them. My vision was if I could get major payers like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna, some of these bigger payers to understand that they could make more money and save more money developing health benefits that encouraged positive lifestyle habits versus having coverage that gets you from sick to not sick, right? And that model creates a tail on the healthcare services that they just never end when you have a sick not sick mentality rather than a preventative mentality. And so we had research. There was a number of things that had gone proving that if a beneficiary, someone that had their insurance, went to a chiropractor first before they went to an MD, that we could reduce the amount of surgeries, we could reduce the amount of drugs that were taken, all these positive numbers, which equated to just billions of dollars in savings. So I, through relationships and through people, I'd been working it for a number of years, I got to the executives of Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I sat in this meeting, and I'm feeling very good. I have everything, all my ducks in a row. I have everything ready that proved my point, could show them how they were going to save money, but it also opened up plan designs to 100% of people living rather than just those that had chronic pain and things of that nature, and all these statistics. I was so excited about this presentation. I deliver it, I get done, and they looked at me and they said, this is amazing. We agree with you, but we'll never do it. And I was like, what do you mean you'll never do it? He goes, we make so much money on paying claims that you're telling us that you can reduce the amount of claims that come in. And that just literally short circuits our entire economic structure. So although we think it's great, and for an individual in our own health choices, that's fantastic. But as an industry, it would basically upend the entire industry. So there's no way we could do it. And I didn't even know how to respond. I'm like, so you rather than be innovative, rather than disrupt the model, you're just going to continue to perpetuate sickness because that's your economic structure. And they were like, yeah, we get so many rebates from pharmaceuticals. We get so many rebates from DMEs for surgeries, hospital rebates. There's so many things that we get. We don't make our money from the premiums. We make our money because of all the relationships we have because of our plan designs. And I was just like, wow. Okay, well, then I'm going to stop. And that day I stopped working with insurance companies because there was just no way that, I started going to self-funded. Employers were willing to make the changes, but the insurance companies were not. And so we started working with self-funded plans and helping them learn how to create better plan designs. And that worked really well. And there's a couple organizations that do great work in that regard. But yeah, it is not designed for health.
Can you just unpack that a little? I lost you somewhere. Like I guess it doesn't compute. So right. They don't, like, you showed them how to help people get healthy, and because that would, you'd think that would save them money.
Well, not only save them money, but I was showing them. So my whole premise was this: right now, if you have health insurance coverage, it costs you almost nothing out of pocket to go to an urgent care, to go to an emergency room, and most likely your primary care physician. No matter what the reason is, there's a zero out of pocket there, which means that's the path of least resistance just from a behavioral standpoint for the individual. But if you want to do acupuncture, chiropractic, go to the gym, get a massage, there's either a really high deductible or very limited benefits. So that is, if you're going to do that, you have to be really motivated to do it because your insurance really isn't going to make it easy for you to do it. So what's happened is we've conditioned people because of the economic impact to them because of their health benefit to do the easier road, to go to the urgent cares. But yet everyone's talking about the abuse of pharmaceuticals, the number of claims, the mismanagement, but it's how the plans are designed. So we had created a plan design that actually encouraged things like chiropractic, acupuncture, nutritionalists. It covered 2 massages a month. It covered gym membership if you at least showed up twice a month, like these types of things. And then if you were going to take the easy way out and go to a urgent care or ER for non-emergency reasons, then there was a deductible. So it was the plan design was built to change behavior in the consumer.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I would buy that.
100%. You and I would, but and I think the average person would as well. But what they were telling me is they can't do that because of all of the ancestral relationships they have with pharmaceutical companies, hospitals. The economic structure doesn't allow that. It would, even though everyone would be a candidate and people would likely pay more for their insurance benefit because they're actually getting something out of it from their perspective, right? If you're covering my gym membership and you're giving me a massage twice a month and I get to go to my chiropractor and I can get acupuncture and there's no out of pocket for any of that, I'm willing to pay more a month for that. People do it now for concierge care. So but they said, and I'm like, and I showed them all the economics, like this will make you a lot of money. It's, you're not losing money in this. You're going to gain customers and all this kind of stuff. But they just kind of lifted the hood and showed me all the back end money that people don't see and don't know about.
Can you explain some of that back end money? Can you like give us
So
some examples?
rebates. So the military gets this too. I do a lot of work with the DoD because right now chiropractors cannot serve in any branch of the military as a chiropractor.
What?
My daughter could not join any branch of the military and be a chiropractor. There is no pathway for that whatsoever. They do not acknowledge it. Active duty military right now do not have chiropractic coverage. Their TRICARE, which is their military benefit, there is no chiropractic coverage on it. So I've been working for years being like, this is ridiculous. It's 2025. Are you serious? Medicare covers it. All major insurance plans cover it. Our Olympic team has more chiropractors on their medical staff than any other form of healthcare provider. And our military, the most deserving of Americans, don't have access to this. This is insane. And so, but the DoD shared with me as well, the pharmaceutical companies have contracts with these major insurance companies and the military. If there's a certain amount of consumption, there is a kickback. Like they give money just for utilization. It's almost like a frequent flyer program.
Explain that. Who the DoD is getting a kickback from the pharmaceutical industry for, but they're the ones paying for the DoD is paying for the insurance, their own version of insurance, right? For the military, right?
Correct. That's for when they're getting care off base.
But when they're getting care on base, the DoD's
they're on a forward operating base, or they're on mission or things like that, and they don't have the ability to go into town and go to their doctor, then that's all covered by the DoD. That's just they have on base facilities.
And the DoD's like, okay, if we get enough of our military on drugs, so meaning we want our military to be so unhealthy they have to be on medication, then the DoD gets kickbacks from the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that's the motive of the DoD. It's just the economic structure that's been built that they look at it and say, I spent X amount on pharma, but we got X amount back, so our net cost is this.
So we don't want to get them too healthy because then we won't get that kickback.
I know that's the case on the health insurance side. I'm not going to say that's the motive of the DoD. I just think the DoD doesn't think about it. They have a blank check anyway. It's just it was exposed through conversations and interviews that I had with individuals in the DoD that it operates the same way there.
There's an incentive
100%.
to not give the soldiers the optimal care they need, like chiropractic. I mean, we've seen how, and I love the military. I support those people are just phenomenal. I don't like war. I'm not pro war, but I'm pro treating our soldiers with optimal care, right? I mean, and the soldiers don't just go out and kill. That's the thing. Like, I'm a dear friend of mine served in one of the previous wars, and he shared with me how he didn't shoot anyone. He the whole time he was there, and he was a liaison working with the native populations in that area, and working with the villages and supporting the villages and bringing them supplies and getting information from them and helping them.
We do more civil service in the military than we do fighting.
Digging wells and providing food or whatever and aiding them. So it's like it's not all war, but at the same time, I'm not pro war, but I'm also pro supporting individual soldiers.
I'm telling you, most of the people that join the military are doing it because they want to support their country. They're not doing it for political reasons. It's been so politicalized because of the media. But the individuals that are in the service, for the most part, are just people that's their career choice. They decided they'd rather do something for their country than anything else. And whatever their reason for joining, they are there and they deserve to have access to the healthcare freedoms and decisions that any other American has. And that is not the case. They don't have access to it. It is controlled because of the medical mindset and the way that they've always had the monopoly within our military. And I'm very passionate about this topic because I've been fighting it for 5 years intimately, to have these conversations and say, this is asinine. You're literally telling me that these people can have all these cutting edge surgeries and all these cutting edge technologies, but they can't get chiropractic? Like, why? Like, what justification, when it's been so widely accepted with every other form of health access, from our athletes to our geriatrics to our pediatrics, but yet our military, just for whatever reason, doesn't need access to it. It makes zero sense. And the fact that is probably one of the only specialties that we couldn't go and serve our country in that capacity because there's just no pathway. And those I'm very, very passionate about that side of making sure that everyone has access to the healthcare choice that they desire. Because we literally have chiropractic kids that join the service and they can't get chiropractic. And it's like they've had chiropractic their whole life. And now they literally can't have it unless they go find someone in a town and they have the freedom to go into town and get it. But that just, it's a pet peeve of mine in that particular space. But the bottom line is this: there are motives and incentives to keep our country the way it is. It's so much money in our GDP and our gross domestic product is related to healthcare because of the perpetual self-feeding system that it's created. And I don't even get me started on cancer. That's a whole nother, and that's touched everybody in some capacity.
Mm-hmm. I lost my mom to cancer, but her cancer was caused by a medication. The medication was being taken off. Now she was really healthy. She was not on any meds, and her dog hurt. She went to a new medical doctor because this medical doctor was the like the Dr. Oz of Canada. I'm from Canada, from Toronto.
Yep.
And she was the most famous doctor in Canada, happened to be in Toronto. My mom went to see her thinking, well, this must be the best doctor, right? And my mom was the strongest woman I knew. She very seldom needed to cry. She was just super tough and awesome in that way, half German, half Austrian. So pretty much 100% German. And she was just tough for first generation immigrant, just very, very tough, or her parents were immigrants and she was first generation Canadian. Super tough woman. And then she comes home and this new doctor made her cry. And she came home out of desperation, started taking this medication that her doctor said, or my mom was postmenopausal. And this woman said, if you don't take this medication, your hip is going to break and you'll fall down and you'll die.
Oh,
and my mom was terrified of that. So she got on this medication. And then when I was in the hospital with my mom the last 2 weeks of her life, and the medication, we were listening to the radio with a little battery powered radio. The medication was taken off the market for killing too many women while my mom was in the hospital, dying of the cancer that this medication caused. And it was a non-bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which my mom didn't need. I wish she had stuck with our naturopaths and our chiropractors. But that just goes to show one wrong turn with and then here's the thing. Every medication that's been taken off the market for killing too many people was first approved and gone through the same approval process as all the other medications that are on the market. And please, I know I started saying this and then we got a little off track, but when I work with clients, which I explain how long I've been working with them for, when I work with clients and they say what their medications, I have them, and sometimes we do it together. We go to the manufacturer's website, sometimes you type in whatever drug you're on and it just Google and it gives you the top maybe 5, 10 quote unquote side effects. These are effects, not side effects. We go to the manufacturer's website and we find the full list of disclosed effects. I have had one client who was in and out of the hospital. She'd been a client for years. And then all of a sudden she just started going, she was doing great. I helped her with so many things. I helped her get so healthy. Her doctors took her off medications. She was medicine free, medication free. She was we got her off of major issues with GERD. She was on crazy medications for digestion. And we got her digestion back online, which I love doing with people. It gives them such a sense of
it does.
Such a sense of power inside their body. Wow, I corrected that, right? Get her digestion back online. So we got her so healthy, and then she moved to a different state, but she stayed in touch with me. And all of a sudden she called me up and she's like, I'm 90 pounds. I can't keep food down. And this year I've been in the hospital more than I've been out of the hospital. And so I'm like, oh, wow, what's going on? Tell me everything you're putting in your mouth. What's going on, right? And she had chronic acute pancreatitis for over a year. And she lost 100 pounds. She was just skin and bones in the hospital more than she was out of the hospital. And she called me multiple times because she was desperate. And I'm like, you got to tell me everything that's going in your mouth. Like, we have to figure this out. Now, I am not a doctor. And she was with doctors and nurses and, many, many practitioners with more formal education than I have. And none of them figured out and she finally admitted what she was put on metformin for preventing diabetes. She didn't even have blood sugar issues. She went to an endocrinologist.
Because of the effects of the other drugs. Yeah.
Well, she went to an endocrinologist, and this endocrinologist said everyone should be on metformin because it's like this miracle drug and the thing is, metformin came from, it was originally a food. It was like, you can find the natural molecule existing in nature. Take that extract. Don't take the drug. But she was on the drug. So she hadn't told me for years, like for the whole time she was suffering, until she finally like came clean. I'm like, well, why are you hiding this from me? I'm trying to help you. So we go to the website together and we read through, and what do you know? First of all, it surprised me. Metformin can cause hyperglycemia. It can cause hypoglycemia. The very two things you could be taking it to treat, it could cause them. And it can cause acute pancreatitis that she was suffering from. And it was like, are you kidding me? So I said, you got to, tell your doctors. This is, first of all, like, I can't tell you to get off meds, but, geez, if I were you, I wouldn't be taking that anymore. So she notified, she was in the hospital, notified the doctors, hey, this might be my cause. Like, maybe I should stop taking this. That was 6 years ago. Hasn't had an episode since.
Yeah.
It was the drug. And this is just one example. I have many examples of this, but this is just one example. So I don't know, maybe she went to a chiropractor. The chiropractor would have like asked her a few questions and like gotten to that point where it was like, hey, here's the, they investigate with you, but because they're not on the payroll of the pharmaceutical industry like the medical doctor's education is. Yep. The chiropractor is a doctor that's looking to support your body's ability to heal itself and get out of its own way, right? Like stop doing what's hurting you, start doing what's healing you. Yep. And because your body is
self-regulating.
The body's always striving to heal. And another thing I wanted to bring up, because you talked about these myths, like that the amount of brain cells you're born with is the amount of brain cells you got. So don't do stupid stuff. Like, and which I get, like, I think that was great advice for us growing up in the
probably because of the dumb
60s,
stuff we were
70s,
doing,
80s, 90s. Like we did some. We probably thank God that social media wasn't around back then, because we did some dumb stuff. I mean, they're doing dumb stuff now with like eating Tide Pods or whatever, right? But that was good advice. It kept us maybe from doing more dumb stuff that we would have done. But the concept that we only are born with a certain amount of, like, for example, brain cells, and that's all you got. When I went through college, my anatomy teacher, I still remember him, Dr. Lubicha. He went on to become the dean of the naturopathic school in Toronto after he was my professor for a few years at college. And he said, and he got really angry, which was weird. But when we went to talking about joints, like talking about like knee joints, hip joints, he got really angry, got red in the face, and he banged his fist on the table and he said, you cannot regrow cartilage when you have arthritis. And he also was our neurology and our pathology teacher. So it was probably pathology class we were talking about, not anatomy, but he was banging his fist on the table. When you have arthritis, you cannot regrow cartilage. Supplements don't work. You have as much cartilage as you have, and that's it. And so I'm like, that's weird. He got really like defensive and weird. And he was a surgeon. He was a neurosurgeon in Croatia. So he had, medical doctor kind of education, but I thought it was really weird that he was really adamant you can't regrow your cartilage. And it doesn't make sense, because like babies grow cartilage. Like, when do you stop growing cartilage and then that's it? And it's like, can you imagine if the body went like, okay, you're 26. That's all you got.
That's all you get.
You don't get any more. Like, that's it. You're just like, all the cartilage you get. And when I had a boyfriend who had a biking accident, and he lost everything in his knee, literally every ligament in his knee, and he was arthritic, but he was a black belt in martial arts, and so he trained himself. The doctors never thought he'd walk again, but he strengthened all his leg muscles so that just his ligaments is what kept the ligaments, the tendons, I should say, not the ligaments, the tendons of his leg kept his knee together, which was wild. But he took copious amounts of glucosamine and chondroitin,
Hmm.
and all the supplements of the raw building blocks of knees and of joints, I should say. And it made it a big difference. And I noticed that contrasting with what my
Yeah.
medical
Professor was telling
doctor
you. Yeah.
professor said. And then years later, when I was mentored by these naturopaths and became a holistic health coach, alongside them, I worked with clients that were bone arthritic, and we
Mhm.
would watch them and help them. We gave them the right supplements, gave them the right coaching, and they would regrow their joints. And so I started seeing people regrowing and thinking back. I always think back to how adamant he was that this was dogmatic. How many beliefs do I have in my brain? How many beliefs do you have in your brain
Very
that
true.
were a PR stunt somewhere back, baked up back in the day to keep people dependent on the pharmaceutical industry? It's because if we believe we can't heal, then we don't even try.
That's
And
right.
we're better consumers of the pharmaceutical companies if we don't even try. So I'd like to talk a little about you just touched briefly on the history, but I'd like to talk about the smear campaign that happened. The AMA
Oh yeah.
did a smear campaign against the chiropractic care, and the effects are still felt today. Could we talk a little bit about the lawsuit that was won and the historically accurate smear campaign that went against chiropractic? If chiropractic didn't work, why would they invest that
Right.
much
Yeah.
into stopping it?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting because what had happened was there was a period of time in the 70s and 80s where it got so bad that the American Medical Association had changed the code of ethics in all of the medical schools, that if a medical doctor referred to or worked with a chiropractor, you were violating the code of ethics within the AMA. Like it was actually part of the code of ethics. So you could not get malpractice insurance. You could it really affected everything. So there was an entire generation of medical doctors that were told that chiropractors are quacks and that working with them is a danger to the patient and it violates your Hippocratic oath. And so when finally there was a whistleblower that really started it, and it happened to be an MD that or somebody that worked within the AMA that shared documents internally that the AMA had created a task force to eradicate the quackery of chiropractic. So it was a very targeted effort within the American Medical Association at that time to do everything they could to eradicate chiropractic. And so part of it was what they were teaching their students. So this is part of the reason chiropractic has not been really accepted in mainstream, is you have an entire generation of medical doctors that were indoctrinated to believe this about chiropractic. This is why, if you're going to an MD that's been in practice for more than 30 to 40 years, they were indoctrinated to believe chiropractors were quacks and they're dangerous. And
But not only that, they would
pseudoscience.
lose. Not only that,
Yeah, they would. Yep.
they were told that externally, tell the public they're quacks, but internally, if you ever work with one, you are canceled. The cancel culture, right? You're canceled as a doctor if you even refer. Let's say someone came in and they're in a lot of pain, and you're like, "Gee, your neck is super twisted. Maybe you should see a chiropractor." You would be
Couldn't say
canceled.
it.
Your
Yep,
livelihood,
100%.
your mortgage payment, your boat payment, your child's college tuition, all gone. Your livelihood gone if you even so as talk to a chiropractor. That is
The indoctrination was
crazy.
it was very similar to the strength of the South versus the North in the Civil War and slavery. The people just believed it. They were just so adamant that doesn't matter what you tell me, doesn't matter what you show me, doesn't matter what you say, that they are bad. And that was the mindset. So this lawsuit was crazy because it's actually still to this date in history, it is the only time that the American Medical Association has been sued and lost, because we did prove in a court of law that they were doing antitrust. They were trying to monopolize. They were trying to inappropriately influence healthcare outcomes as it related to the efficacy and effectiveness of chiropractic. So, time is the ultimate healer of all wounds. We're in a very unique time right now in history where most of those individuals that were impacted by those days are dying or retiring. The people that are taking their place in the 80s, after we won that lawsuit, then we ultimately were recognized by Medicare as a true specialty. 1975, Louisiana was the last state to actually license chiropractors as doctors in the state. So now all 50 states recognize chiropractors as physicians. We are on the same level as an MD and a DO in all 50 states, meaning we have the ability to differentially diagnose. So it was a lot of work done, but this lawsuit, as horrible as it was, it really did catapult a lot of positive change in the general public's understanding and acceptance of chiropractic. In the 80s, I call them the Mercedes 80s because in chiropractic, Medicare recognized us, major med insurances started covering. We just won that massively public lawsuit showing that the medical association had been lying about chiropractic. So all this stuff was happening. So chiropractic was busy and growing like crazy. More people were going to chiropractic school to become chiropractors. And so in that period of time, we were seeing a bunch of people and a bunch of kids and all that stuff. So right now, in this time in 2025, the kids that we were seeing back then are now becoming the heads of companies, being the medical directors in hospitals. And there is a general acceptance now that chiropractic has a place in healthcare. There isn't the staunch anti that there used to be. The military is really the only place that I'm still running into that. But it's now's the time where we have people that got adjusted when they were a kid. Maybe they didn't stick with it. Maybe they don't understand it to the level that they probably could or should, but it's being taught now more appropriately. A lot of medical schools are now adding chiropractic programs. So we're starting to see this, the opioid crisis was a huge advocate to our storytelling. COVID was an unbelievable. COVID changed the consciousness of the general public on what sickness really was. But prior to COVID, if you would say, "Are you sick?" it would be merely the absence of symptoms meant I was healthy. COVID changed that. COVID said, I need to be a healthy host so that these things don't have fertilized ground to grow, because COVID didn't hurt healthy people. It only hurt people that had comorbidities or other, comorbidities or any other I can't remember the word, but breathing issues, complications to that area. That's who is susceptible. So if you were already sick or you weren't a healthy person,
or
then
it could also be that you thought you were a healthy person.
Correct.
It smoked out.
Yeah.
But I know people who are like, yeah, I tested positive, but I don't have any symptoms. And that's the thing with polio too. And I had actually a chiropractor on my show, Dr. Wolfson. I had both husband and wife. So this is the wife we're talking about.
Yeah.
But she talks about how if you got a room of 100 people and exposed them all to polio, because polio is actually still going around, and let's just put a pin on that one and have a conversation for another day. But it still goes around, it still happens, and it's maybe we're stronger, maybe it's weaker, I don't know. But here's the thing: 90% of people who got exposed will have asymptomatic. The body goes, oh look, virus, handle it. And 5% of people would have some symptoms that they overcome, no problem. And then the other 5%, so like 5% so 5 people out of 100 might need hospitalization, might need more serious care to overcome. And that concept that you mentioned, the host, the body is like the garden, right? So the petri dish, our body could be like a petri dish, it could be like a garden. What are we feeding? What microbes are we feeding? If that soil is a really good host for parasites and viruses and bacteria, so like the petri dish, it's going to feed. What is our body feeding? So we can get so healthy that we overcome things really quickly. And I think that's a great example of health. It's not that you don't catch it, whatever. It's not that you don't get sick. It's how quickly do you bounce back.
Totally agree.
And sometimes you're like last night, middle of the night, I woke up with a weird thing in my throat and I was like, oh, and I took my homeopathic. There's a homeopathic that you can take the moment you start feeling like you're getting like a head cold, and it blows it out of your system. And I can't tell you how many times I have done that like just woken up feeling like, oh, there's a little bit of a sore throat, a little bit of a tickle, or my son wakes up with a little bit of a cough or a tickle. I'm like, take this homeopathic, next day, fine, no problems. We can blow stuff out of our system if we handle it really quickly and if we eat really healthy. So I think with COVID, like you said, it shook the people who were unhealthy, but I think a lot of people thought they were healthy because our version of health is
so skewed.
So skewed, right? So I know a lot of people are listening. It's like, hey, COVID really hurt. Like that was really hard for me to go through. I'm like, well, like me too, but I'm not saying I have perfect health. I'm still working on myself.
I think we all are.
And I think so it's some people it didn't affect them at all, but the people that it really hurt were definitely already had major issues. And I like that you're bringing up that it shifted our mindset to be hopefully focusing more on preventive medicine, meaning I could actually build my body up so healthy that I don't develop type 2 diabetes, cancer, heart disease. I'm not a good host for viruses and bacteria. And there's even a whole concept that viruses don't exist. It's really an interesting thought exercise to go through, that the body's dealing with toxins, and it's the nature of the body, what's going on, the balance, the homeostasis of the body. So we're supporting the body in being as absolutely healthy as it can be. Coming back to that idea of thoughts, toxins, and traumas. I wish we could add nutrition. As like, I don't know if can we find a word that means nutrition but starts with a T and say it's the 4 T's?
Well, actually toxic has everything to do with nutrition. Like that,
but
it's
lack of
toxicity
nutrition
to the body. Yeah.
So like
correct,
people are
correct.
not, is that considered toxin when you have a deficiency in certain nutrients?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because that's toxic to the body. Right. So it's not just chemicals. It's the nutrients. It's what we're eating. It's what we're breathing. It's what we're not eating. It's, that's the toxin side of this. It's the internal chemistry of the body, which is all food related in the end. So that's what he meant by toxins.
I love it.
Yep.
For those who are like, okay, this is interesting, maybe that's why my grandma said never see a chiropractor, or wow, like maybe people who have never seen a chiropractor start to question their belief system around it. Like, okay, maybe it's not this painful rack and crack, this, this quackery that I've been told by my family or my doctor or, by the Hollywood, right? Hollywood is in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. So we really have to start to question our belief system. And so let's say we're questioning our belief system, those who've never had chiropractic care. You've talked a lot of great points, but could you bring up do you have any like studies that you can cite showing that this helps? Is there anything that you can point to that says
even better? I'm gonna give you a very easy website that has everything that you would want to know about the truth and efficacy of chiropractic. So it's www.f as in Frank, the number 4, not spelled out, but the number 4, C as in Charlie, P as in Paul.org. So f4cp.org. So that stands for the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress. It's an organization that its sole purpose is to put out positive information about chiropractic. And they have just got an unbelievable amount of information on that site, that everything from research studies to surveys done by different groups. And it's just a phenomenal resource for the public to be able to go. And if you want to do a deeper dive, it also has a place for you to find a chiropractor near you.
Do you have a study that you like? Have you ever heard of something that was like blew your mind about chiropractic, or was like, everyone needs to know about this one thing, this one study, or this one irrefutable proof? Yep.
So Dr. Heidi Hoag released, this was probably about 5 months ago. She just got a new study published, and this particular study looked at, you had mentioned this earlier about finding a chiropractor that is very specific, right? That doesn't just rack them and crack them, as we say in our profession. And this study actually proved that there's a term that we use in chiropractic called subluxation. And what that means is there's a misalignment in the spine. And when you adjust a part of the spine that does not have instability in it, that isn't subluxated, it does not create an effect on the prefrontal cortex. Only if you're moving a joint or a segment that has that instability does it actually stimulate the prefrontal cortex. That is so huge on so many levels. And for those that don't know from brain, the prefrontal cortex is like your operator of your brain. It determines what parts of the brain turn on, turn off. It controls most of your emotions. It controls most of the chemical release for serotonin and all that other kind of stuff. So the prefrontal cortex is very, very powerful in how the brain operates as a whole. And so when you're stimulating the prefrontal cortex, when you're waking it up, it now does its job, and it'll amplify the other parts of the brain. So it's extremely important that you want that stimulation of the prefrontal cortex. So the specificity of the adjustment, this study proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that just cracking your knuckles doesn't do anything unless there's an actual issue in that area and there's nerve involvement. But if we, through the ability of a chiropractor to detect exactly where, like for your example, when you were having the upper cervical issues and your vertigo, their ability to palpate and know it was specifically your atlas, not just your cervical spine, and they only adjusted you. Upper cervical is very, very specific to only move that top vertebra, not to move the other vertebra. That's why you had such a powerful response after just a couple of adjustments, because it was very specific. It was isolated only to the area that needed it. So that is what created the impact to the prefrontal cortex. So that geeked me out because it validated the specificity of the work that chiropractors do. PTs will say all the time that they adjust. They don't really, they'll manipulate and they'll mobilize, but they don't adjust because they don't know the specificity of the movement and the pattern and the vector in which they're trying to move the bone, if it's anterior or posterior, all that kind of stuff. DOs.
Well, and the speed, right? There's like level
100%,
like
the velocity,
1 through 5
yep.
speed, and they're not doing it with like the level 5 speed. They might be doing it level
Correct.
2 or 3, which is
Correct.
great. Mobilizing joints is great. Like traction is wonderful
Oh,
when
yeah.
you need it. No,
Yeah.
but you got to be careful. You can't just do traction, randomly. You've got to like you need to really know what you're doing and know that it's not going to hurt you further. But that's why I like the specificity of chiropractic care, because they really take do no harm seriously, like way more seriously than your medical doctor does. And they're going in and they're just adjusting that one tiny thing, and it doesn't take a lot of force like we think it does, because it looks super painful. It's not painful at all. It's very relieving. And that's why I'm a big fan of the activator. It's so funny that I just poo-pooed the activator for so long until I found my current chiropractor, and now I'm like, I want to scream her name to the rooftops, but I also don't want her so busy that I can't go to see her twice a week.
Right. Yeah, I don't want it to affect my routine. Right?
I need her to make sure I still get in. But oh my gosh, I've sent several friends to her, and it's just like game changer, man. Super.
My
super
daughter's
game
certified
changer.
in activator, and it is. She uses it a lot with children. She does it a lot with the older group, and it's it is a powerful technique. Yep.
Well, I took my son to a so my chiropractor at the time, and I love him and he's dear, but he wasn't trained in pediatrics. So when our son was born 10 years ago, he adjusted my pelvic bone, which was amazing. He like put me back into place, like it clicked, and I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of relief was amazing. I actually went to him. I went straight from the hospital, and he was the very first person I saw. We took our baby, and we ran away from the hospital, and as they were trying to, chase us with all their needles, and I went straight to my chiropractor, and he put me back together, but he goes, he actually referred us to a chiropractor in his 80s who was just about to retire. I'm like, you can't retire until my baby's not a baby anymore. And all he did was work on babies. Yeah. And I watched him adjust our baby so gently, and he held our baby's hips and held him upside down, and then held his ankles and held him upside down. And our son loved it. Like, it was great. Every time our son would get adjusted, there would be a huge leap in his development. Like, he went, it was really neat. He went from like not grabbing things to grabbing things. He went from not changing across the plane, like, like let's say right hand over to the left side and left leg over to the right side. He went from, not crawling to crawling, or not rolling over to rolling over. Like, every single time he had an adjustment, it helped his nervous system, and it allowed him to do the next thing. And he showed us some exercises to do with our son, like the gently holding him upside down by the ankles and rocking him. Yep. He loved that. But like that level of
understanding of the
training and
neurological
understanding.
development. It's
Yes,
amazing.
yes,
Yeah.
and supporting also, like you talked about with ADHD and autism spectrum, that there are some reflexes that
Yep.
from childhood, from infancy, that stick.
Primitive reflexes. Yep.
And I watched them in my son. I watched some reflexes, and the chiropractors that we've seen it would test our son and be like, okay, at this age, he should be able to, for example, hop on one foot, or should be able to jump with both feet in the air, and they were able to test his infant reflexes and help us to mature them, which really helps the nervous system and helps learning and focus and just being able to be dexterous. And
Yeah.
it's just like, you're really doing yourself and your family a disservice by not starting your children at infancy with a really good chiropractor, and
Totally agree.
going straight from birth. I birthed and I ran to my chiropractor.
Yeah. That's
Both
awesome.
times.
Good for you.
Yeah, so
Good
it
for
was
you.
it was truly, they are enriching experience. So I know people are sick of me saying how great they are, but I wanted to know your talk to the people who are still hesitant or non-believers. Is you've talked about, we can go to that website, the f4cp.org, and we can check out the reality check by Dr. Heidi. Are there any other things that you've seen or heard that have just been really transformative in people's belief systems?
Yeah, I think, again, one of the big concerns that a lot of people have is like, I don't want them adjusting my neck. We have a lot of patients, they're fearful, right? They think they've been so, convinced over time that chiropractors don't know what they're doing, and it just seems a little barbaric in some of the techniques that are used. If you look at, I use this analogy all the time. If you look at let's just look at the economics of it and malpractice insurance, right? All insurance premiums are created by looking at the potential of the plan having to pay out, right? So if there's a higher risk of us having, medical claims, your premiums are going to be higher, right? If there's very little risk of us having to pay out, your premiums are going to be lower. I think everyone understands that general concept of insurance. So an MD's, just a run-of-the-mill family practice MD, their malpractice insurance will range anywhere from $50,000 to $120,000 a year, depending on the type of practice they operate. A chiropractor, their malpractice insurance for a year, my daughter was fresh out of school. She's been out for 2 years. I pay $1,100 a year for her malpractice. And this is a brand new student, right? So this is someone that doesn't have years and years and years of experience. So you would think that the premium would be higher because they have less experience, maybe more prone to having incidences or accidents. And it just doesn't happen. Chiropractors don't hurt people. Sometimes, you'll see occasionally that, oh, this chiropractor caused a stroke. Every single one of those supposed stroke issues, it's been proven that there was already an underlying issue. It could have been anything that actually caused the stroke. It wasn't the adjustment that did the vertebral dissection. That just happened to be the mechanism, but there was already issues. And maybe that chiropractor didn't do a good exam to be able to look for those warning signs. And a lot of times there are no warning signs. So they didn't do anything wrong, and they've been found innocent of any wrongdoing in it. But of course, the media takes it and throws it out there. So that's the fear that people have associated to getting adjusted is, and as you stated, there are techniques like activator that don't do the rotation. You're not hearing the big cracks and pops.
Nope.
So I'm asking people, prove me wrong. Like, just what do you have to lose at this point? If you have chronic health issues, if you're not happy with the gains that you've been having in your health choices, why would you not go and at least try it? I used to do this with my moms with ADHD. I'm like, you're going to put your kid on a class 3 controlled substance. Ritalin is the same category as cocaine. And the addictive issues of it are worse than cocaine.
Yeah.
And you know that if they tell you you cannot immediately stop taking it or your child will likely commit suicide, this is a serious drug. This isn't just a vitamin, right? If you're going to tell me you would rather do that then try a conservative approach that we'll know within a couple weeks if this is going to have a positive effect, why wouldn't you do that? Like, I don't know as a parent why you wouldn't at least try everything you could before sentencing your child to the lifetime of taking a massively addictive drug. There's a reason why they sell it on the street, right? I mean, there's just, so I just ask people, There are multitudes of different chiropractors that have different techniques, different styles. Go to a female if you don't want a big, man, crunching on you. 90% of the time, women use softer techniques. They're just softer in their approach. We have a lot of women chiropractors. There's a female chiropractor in every town. I guarantee it. And just give it a shot. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your brain. You owe it to your family to try to make sure that you're creating a foundation of health so that all your other healthcare decisions have a better chance of being effective because your brain and your body are more appropriately connected. So it's just the reason I'm here is because of the knowledge I gained when I got into it in the mid 90s. And I was blown away that no one ever told me this was a possibility. And I never wanted to come in contact with another person and not make sure that they had all the information they needed to make good healthcare choices. So I appreciate you, Ashley. I appreciate your platform that you have here and the willingness to dig into some of these conversations a little bit deeper without judgment, with an open mind. And that's what I would ask of your listeners. There's a reason we're still around. I mean, we've already talked about the attacks to try to shut us down. We've talked about the limited access to different things, all these variances that have tried to stop chiropractic from being part of mainstream healthcare decision-making, but yet we're still here because we work. Although our patients that do have made the decision to go with us love us. And so we're going to be around forever because there are too many people that use it as part of their everyday healthcare decision. And so I just would hate for someone to make other healthcare decisions and at least not add this to the repertoire to find out if maybe it's the missing link.
Right, add it to your team. So I told you I've seen at least, I kind of lost count after 12 chiropractors, and it's not because one didn't work, it's because I've moved around. But even just in the Seattle area, I can think of 6 chiropractors I've seen since 2010. And sometimes I'm seeing more than one because they are totally different specialties. So for example, Dr. Dick Shepard, amazing chiropractor in Seattle, he has a completely different technique than I've seen. And most chiropractors I go to are totally different. They each adapt. They either, they're different techniques, but they're all working on the nervous system. And he doesn't do any of that quick. He doesn't use an activator. He doesn't do anything quick. He's working with the nervous system. You lie on a table for about a half an hour, and he's very slowly, he's almost like holding you with his hands. He's very slowly moving things. And his whole concept is to take you out of fight or flight, because that's when the healing can begin. And he says, our birth is traumatic. Our childhood is traumatic. Try to find someone who didn't have a traumatic childhood, didn't like,
right,
like life is traumatic, right?
Exactly.
So but over time, we are just chronically in that fight or flight. And even if we do things to relax ourselves, we're still on guard. We're still, maybe traumatized by being beat up as a kid, or like, in the playground, or by a family member or whatever, right? And so he holds you and works on your nervous system in such a gentle way that he finally has you get into that the healing mode,
parasympathetic,
that parasympathetic healing mode. Unlike I've had so many massages, and it would be like if you took 1,000 massages and concentrated them. It's just it's really neat. But he really does tap into your nervous system, tells your body you're safe, and turns off that fight or flight. And so no fast popping, cracking, nothing. And he's doing chiropractic because he's working on, and he is a chiropractor. He's working on the nervous system. And then, like I said, my chiropractor now, Dr. Claire Russell, who works with an activator, and it is so precise, and no cracking, popping, no sudden movements, and it is divine how she has put me back together. And like the other day I said to her, listen, I'm vocal with her, because speak up. When you go to your chiropractor, tell them what's bothering you that week or that month. Tell them what's up, not just physical, emotional, mental, like tell them what you're dealing with. And I said, you know what? For some reason, I'm just emotionally like got a block. I've got, my computer broke down. I had to get it fixed. And I've got this emotional or mental block around going back in the office. And I love what I do. I want to do. I just noticed I have this emotion. Is there anything you could do for me? She goes, oh yeah, let's test this, this thing. And there's like a bone near the brain. And she goes, usually when this is out, that's associated with procrastination, and maybe that like emotional feeling of like a blockage, like you just can't, like you go to do something and then you just don't want to do it. And sure enough, she goes, yep, that tested out. Let's click, click, click. And
Yep.
it was such a relief. And then I'm like, oh, back to myself again. Like, how neat
Yep.
is that? That's something so slight, so
Yeah.
precise, and so gentle and so slight could have affected my emotional, mental,
It's
body.
all intertwined. Like we need
Right.
to understand that there's no isolated health issue ever.
Right.
It is all connected. There's an energy connection between all of it. And what we do in our profession is we've learned to listen to the body. We trust the body. The body tells us what needs to be done. And it's just incredible. So give it a shot.
Yeah. Okay. I want to plug something. So first of all, what's the name of your clinic that your daughter works at?
Patriot Chiropractic.
And Patriot Chiropractic, is there a website or?
Yeah, patriotchiro.com.
Nice. And that's, where was that located again?
In Dublin, Ohio.
Dublin, Ohio. Okay. And then you've got a few websites, Health Freedom 101, as in the numbers, 101, healthfreedom101.com. You've got a 10-step guide for empowering your healthcare decisions. And you also have defendchiropractic.org. Of course, the links to everything you do is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com. What do they learn by going to these websites? Why should they go to these websites? What do they get out of them?
Yeah, the Health 101 is just, we wanted to have a resource for people that were listening to this that wanted more information. It was really a way to get connected with me. If maybe I said something that intrigued you, I don't have products to sell. I'm not doing this because I'm trying to push an agenda. I'm doing this because I want to tell the story, and I want to encourage people to keep digging and look. But obviously, people, if they do resonate with me, you're going to find me at the 101 website. The Defend Chiropractic, that's the work that our nonprofit does. We defend and advocate for chiropractic around the world. We're in 9 different countries. We take on various issues. So if you really want to learn more about the struggles and things that we're facing in chiropractic, and that's an interest in the Defend Chiropractic website, we'll get that done. And then obviously our practice site, you'll learn a little bit more about our approach to chiropractic and the neurology behind it and the way that we serve our community.
And then also, because you are the executive director of One Chiropractic, which is an advocacy organization, you've got One Chiropractic. Is it onechiropractic.com?
.org.
.org. Yep. Okay. Onechiropractic.org. And tell us just a little bit about, I know it's self-explanatory, like you are an advocacy organization, but you're disruptive. You guys aren't just like any other. What's different about One Chiropractic? Can we donate to you? Can we share this with our chiropractors? What can we do to support and help One Chiropractic?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are. We're a nonprofit organization, so all of our funding comes from contributions. So sure, if if this motivates you, we would love your support. It's more directed towards chiropractors giving because of the work that we do, but anyone that loves chiropractic or has a desire to be connected with it, that'd be awesome. But we're an advocacy organization. We're disruptive because of the way that we approach things. Our organization is not a membership organization. We're a directorship, which means we make decisions and we move on them, and then people support us if they like the work we're doing. And so we've approached this thing with chiropractic very head on, dealing not only within our own profession but outside of our profession. We take on very specific projects. Our goal is to make sure that everyone understands chiropractic, and hopefully they make it as one of their primary healthcare choices. And so anywhere that there's restriction to access, anywhere that maybe there's just a lack of understanding, anywhere where there's a direct attack against us, we're the organization in our profession that takes on those types of things. We don't do a lot of, we don't put on seminars for continuing education. We're not doing, legislative in states just for, scope expansion or things of that nature. Our organization is all about doing the work that no one else has been doing or wanting to do. And so most of our stuff is very long. It takes a while to us to have the change, but that's just the calling that we have. And it's my personal mission and love for this. My kids are chiropractors. It's what I love. It's what I do. And so I wanted to create an organization that gave me the vehicle to be able to go and do the work that needed to be done. And thankfully, we've had thousands of people that give to us every single month to allow us to continue to do the work that we're doing.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. What school is your son going to?
So he's at Life University in Atlanta right now.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Is that the same one your daughter went to?
No, my daughter actually went to Sherman in South Carolina. It's a much smaller school. My daughter didn't like Atlanta. She didn't like the size. Life University is the largest single campus chiropractic school in the country. There's only 19 chiropractic schools in the United States. And so most people don't realize that. And obviously East Coast, West Coast, but Sherman was in a small town. They only had about 600 students. Where my son's going, they have about 5,000. So it's a much bigger place, and obviously Atlanta's a much bigger city. But he loves that. She didn't.
It'll be interesting to see how
two
different schools
already seeing it.
Yeah, you're seeing how it brings up different. When you go to enough chiropractors, you go. I always ask them, what school did you go? Like, who mentored you? Like, how did your style develop? And the best chiropractors I've gone to had amazing mentorships and combined what they learned from different mentors and through trial and error found what worked for them. Like my chiropractors developed a style of kinesiology. I keep begging her, like, go teach this. It works so well. And because like these chiropractors who are amazingly intelligent but also highly intuitive with their patients go, okay, this thing is working. This something I just figured out about the body is working. And they figured out, and then hopefully they go and they share it, right? And then it spreads, and that's how new styles get created.
100%.
But it's like that's the coolest thing about it, is that this is to aid the body in healing, and it's not to harm you. So it's like, worst case scenario, you like walk away going, I don't know if that helped, right? Like, whereas if you go to a MD, worst case scenario is literally they kill you
right.
with the drugs.
It's a bit different
because they're there's a certain percentage, like a large percentage of drugs that are prescribed that kill people every year. It's like the third leading cause of death in the United States is like prescribing drugs how they're supposed to be prescribed, not even like overdose, not like accidental.
Properly prescribed.
Properly prescribed drugs is like the third leading cause of death in the United States. And that's insane how we continue to trust them. And that's the amount of PR that they've poured into the trust campaign. So I think we did an adequate job today helping, although I'm pretty sure listeners already were on the bandwagon, but hopefully they share this with those who they love, who they want to help open their eyes to. We should take some of that trust that we blindly give MDs. And I don't think we should blindly trust anything. We should question everything, but at least take some of that trust away from the MD profession, especially when it comes to chronic illness, because they have zero solutions for chronic illness. And we should pour it into chiropractic care and at least give it a fair shot, give it a fair shake and see how it does. Also, try a different chiropractor, like expand, like be willing to go like, oh, I really like my chiropractor, but be willing to go to a different one just to try a different technique, just to experience the difference. Cause, like I said, I go to several different ones just depending on what I feel I need because it's so different, but they all are helping the body heal itself. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun, Bharon. If you have more to share in the future, I'd love to have you back. I'd love to continue this conversation. If there's more happening in the world of chiropractic that you'd like to share about. And also, I really want to interview your friend, Dr. Heidi. I'm going to read her book
Hoag?
first.
Yeah.
But I'd love to have her on the show. If you could hook us up, that'd be a lot of fun.
I can definitely make the relationship without a doubt. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And listeners could check out healthfreedom101.com. And they can also check out One Chiropractic was the other one, defendchiropractic.org, and onechiropractic.org, defendchiropractic.org, and f4cp.org. All those are going to be in the show notes of today's podcast, Learn True Health. It was great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. God bless.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Saltzman, and I am the head coach at takeyoursupplements.com. I wanted to share with you a testimonial that I received from a client of mine, one of the many success stories that I have, but this one just was very close to my heart because she's young and has struggled so much to regain her health and has had just such a phenomenal overcoming testimonial that I really wanted to share it today. She writes, "My name is Angela. I am 25 years old. I have been on a health journey that consists of an autoimmune disease, fibromyalgia, and other issues that left me feeling defeated and debilitated every day for 15 years. I have seen 8 different specialists, and many doctors have been in and out of physical therapy dealing with symptoms I thought would leave me wheelchair bound and in diapers by the time I was 30. Well, I am now 25, and after everything I've learned through Jennifer at takeyoursupplements.com, that definitely won't happen. Some things doctors have said to me have crushed my hopes. I was told to lose weight and that my pain would go away. So I lost 90 pounds, and the pain was still there. My days were short, and after a 5-hour work shift or even a day of running an errand or two, I was left debilitated. So the doctors told me the pain was all in my head because I was previously diagnosed with fibromyalgia, the only diagnosis so many doctors agreed upon because they couldn't think of anything else despite me having some form of an immune disease. I felt hopeless and as if life was going to pass me by. There were times when I tried hiking 1 or 2 miles and I was unable to walk or function for days after. I was missing out on trips and adventures, and as embarrassing as it sounds, I was having BM bathroom emergencies so frequently, it was ruining my daily function. I could go on about the ways I was ill and what it kept me from, but honestly, after the progress I've made, a long list of symptoms I used to have become a blur of the past. When I finally decided to check out takeyoursupplements.com, recommended through the Learn True Health podcast, I was immediately connected with Jennifer, who kept track of my overwhelmingly long list of complex symptoms and thoroughly created a personalized step-by-step plan. Her recommendations have changed my life, and the changes were practically instant. She put me on a complete digestive activation complex that has taken away all of my stomach pain, unnecessary bloating and gas, and she explained to me that the formula supports every stage of digestion from breakdown to absorption, designed to optimize stomach acid, bile flow, and nutrient assimilation. She recommended a cellular repair-focused diet, which not only has helped my stomach, but the food gives me energy and makes me feel really good. It reduces inflammation in my body, something no doctor ever told me about. When I first started with Jennifer, I took the takeyoursupplements.com health evaluation, and I scored a negative 32. I just retook it and scored a 69. That's 100 points better in 5 months. Still room for progress, but my life nevertheless has been changed, and I am so happy. My days have been much longer and full of adventure. I have hiked the 4,000-footer mountains of New Hampshire, something I never thought I would be able to do. I have had successful days of workouts, errands, and work. The Learn True Health podcast and Jennifer at takeyoursupplements.com have done more for me than any doctor ever has. And it all started with validation. I am now 25 and feel my life is just now starting. It's really hard to put into words just how much has changed for me. So I'll keep on living as actively as possible and learning as much as I can so I can finally take part in the beautiful things of life. I can't wait for the adventures to come with the hope I've been given through this program. If anyone out there hears this and feels their doctors are taking more than they're giving, give this a try. Thank you, Ashley and Jennifer. Your knowledge and expertise is a gift I cherish every day.
Learn more and book your free health consultation today by visiting takeyoursupplements.com.